Hi, it's John from Crafts by John UK. Today's card is this cute birthday card. You can see it's got this adorable girl with a big piece of birthday cake, or in fact a whole cake, and it says cake is for life, not just for birthdays. She's coloured in bright Pro Marker alcohol pens, and I've created this interesting background to go with her as well, using some smooshing and a couple of different Distress Oxides. Her eyes are glossy, and at the moment they're kind of still drying, so they look a little bit fuzzy, but they will dry clear. And she is basically today's card. So if you're interested in how I created that and you want to see the process, I will explain everything from start to finish in a short video. Stay tuned. Okay, so let's get started then. I'm going to use my glass mat. So this is much easier to use when you're working with water. And first of all, I've got our background element. So this is a piece of cardstock. It's watercolor card. It's a 300 GSM 140 card because we're going to be using water on it, so I want it to be decent. And then I've got my strip which we're going to put on top as well, which I'm actually going to cut down a little bit because I don't want it to be as long. So first of all, we're going to create the background. Now we're creating that with Distress Oxides. I'm using a couple of different colors here. You can see I've got picked raspberry, squeezed lemonade. These are two of my favorite colors. They go really well together, and they will create a lovely, nice background for our pretty little girl, for our cake themed card. So I'm going to start off, and first of all I'm going to do a little bit of smooshing. So I'm going to take my lemonade and I'm just going to put just a few bits onto my glass mat, and then taking my distress sprayer, just going to spritz them a little bit. Now I don't want this background to be too heavy, so I'm kind of going to just plop down, not laying overly heavily because I don't want the colour to be too dominant. So I'm just kind of going around the edge, just getting a little bit of colour. Now don't worry if it kind of bunches up. Obviously this is only the first layer. But just look where the colour's going. So like here I haven't got any, so just press down there. Just want to get a kind of a layer of colour. Now the crucial bit between layers is drying. So apologies, you're going to get noise from my heat tool, but we have to dry the layers between, otherwise the colours won't sit well together. You end up with a mush. So just going to dry this off. This is why you need a decent thick cardstock, because it will all start to curl up and react with the water if it's not a decent thickness. Okay, that's enough. Go in again with the yellow while we've still got it on our mat. And as we've taken some of that off now, we can be a little bit bolder. But I don't want this to be, as I've said, too kind of dominant a background. I want it to be quite subtle. There we go, that's probably enough yellow. You're kind of looking at it, you're thinking, oh, there's not a lot there, but by the time we finish, it will be. So I'm just going to dry that again. There we go. That's enough. Just dry the back. Okay, now let's go in with our pink. We don't really need to bother to clean this because we've already taken a lot of that colour off. Just blobbing it around, not too much. And I'm just going to, again, spritz it with my Distress sprayer. Now this time around, I'm actually going to use a piece of kitchen towel, and I'm going to take some of this pink off because I don't want that to be too heavy and I don't want it to be too much. So I'm just going to take a little bit off. There we go, just with a scrap bit of kitchen towel. And then, again, just going to smush that down. There we go. So we're getting, you can see, some nice random shapes, etc. Again, lift up, keep looking, keep checking, add more, etc. There we go. So we've got quite a nice background there. I think I probably need a little bit more in that corner. There we go. And just pick it up. So pick up where the colour is. There we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Now, the other thing we can do as well is actually spritz onto the base itself, and that will, again, take more off. You see what's wet just thins it out a little bit and reduces that colour down. That, to me, looks pretty good. So I think we're going to go with that. We're going to dry that off now. You'll see it will curl up as I dry it, but you turn it over and you'll see it flattens out as we dry it, because the heat kind of goes through the textures of the paper and it encourages it to dry out. But we're going to be able to leave that for a while we make our other feature panel. There we go, that'll do. That's fine. Right, so that's our base done. So we've got quite a nice base, and you can see it's quite a nice subtle colour, which is good. So I'm just going to bend that out and just make sure it's kind of flat. And I'm just going to put that on the side to dry. Just going to give this a spritz and clean that up. There we go, done. Super quick. Right, we can put that away. Now, we've got our main feature panel, but as I said to you, it's just a little bit long, so I'm just going to cut this down. This is a scrap piece of paper. It's an offcut from another card, but it's the same watercolour paper, so it's the same as the background panel in terms of base colour. So I'm going to use that, but I'm just going to cut it down. I think probably, maybe that one would be good enough, actually. No, I think we'll go for that one, actually. There we go. Right. That's our panel. So we're going to put our girl, which I've already got here on my card, on my acrylic block. And then the text is going to go underneath that says cake is for life, not just for birthdays. It's quite cute. So we're not going to have loads of spare room. It's just about exactly the right size. So I'm going to stamp this in black VersaFine. So I've just got my black VersaFine pigment ink here. I'm just going to ink that up and go for it with my acrylic block. So I don't need to worry too much about centering it, but I will just try and make sure I get it in roughly the right place. There we go. Right, and when you put that down, just give it a good impression, a good long press, just so that all the ink goes into the paper. Leave it to rest a moment, put your hand on it, do whatever you need to do. While I'm doing that, I'm grabbing my tub of ultrafine Wow, because I want to heat set that because I'm going to colour it. So I'm actually dipping it completely in. And you might ask, why don't you stamp the other piece? I like doing it as I go along. So I'm going to put that in and actually do that straight away. And just notice I made a mucky mark on the bottom, which I'll show you how to fix. So I'm just heat setting that. This is Wow Ultrafine Clear Emboss. It just gives you a nice little raised edge to colour up to. And it sets that so it's nice and glossy finish. And always heat the back as well. There we go, so that's one piece done. And the second piece is the sentiment, which I've got here, which I'm just going to ink up as well. And stamp down. So let's have a look at that. This is going to be fairly tight, actually. Now, she is finishing on the right hand side. Do I stamp? Make it, actually it could go there for fun. Fit it in the crook of her leg. There we go, that works fine. So again, into the powder, and I will just heat emboss that as well. So I hadn't actually intended on doing that. I was going to put it underneath, but I think it actually sits well in that position. And I love this sentiment, it's quite quirky. This is a All and Create set, and as usual, quite quirky. Quite fun. I like their modern style. So we've now got both our image and our sentiment stamped, which is good. So now we need to colour. So let me just give that a rub over, just to get rid of any loose powder or anything. Now, I did with my dirty fingers, because unfortunately my ink pad needs a clean. It's a little bit dirty. I have made a dirty mark on there, so I'm going to find, if I can somewhere, my ink eraser. Now, the side of my desk is actually pretty much a war zone, and I'm not finding it at the moment. I could try this one, see if that does it. I mean, we're going to ink around the edges anyway, but just need to get that little dirty mark off. I mean, the other option would be to cut another piece off the bottom, which is actually what I'm going to do, because that will be infinitely easier. So just going to line that up. Now we've stamped higher up, we don't actually need all that space at the bottom, so I'm thinking to just cut another grid line off there, and then that gets rid of that dirty mark as well. Remember, no mistakes in card making, just change things along the way. There we go, and that's how you fix an issue like that. And there we go, it's actually better balanced anyway now. So, right, I'm going to colour this with my Pro markers. So these are pens I don't use all that often, but sometimes when you want quite vibrant flat colour, these are good. So I've picked out a whole load of colours here, and basically I'm just going to colour her in my Pro markers in a nice bright style. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and just bring you down a little bit so that you can see that. It means I've kind of got to move where I am a little bit, but that's fine. So let's work out how we're going to colour her. So I'm going to go in first of all with the darker colour. So I'm going to do her hair kind of an orangey tinted yellow. So I'm going in first of all with the orange, just laying down a little bit of colour. Then what I'll do is I will take the yellow and I will now go over the orange. So I'm just going over in exactly the same place, and that will kind of smooth the colour out so that I end up with a bit of the orange, but it kind of fades and blends nicely into the yellow colour. Just working my way around. And as I say, if you emboss with the ultra fine wow powders, you find that your edge has a slight little lip, so it's something to colour up to, which is quite good. There we go, and if you just need to kind of go over again, just do that. There we go, and then same on this side. Always go over the darker colour first because it kind of starts the blend and it helps the two colours kind of work their way together. Different people have different ways of colouring. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm not telling you how to do it definitively. You kind of find your own way. Okay, hair done. Perfecto. So next would be, I guess, skin. So I'm thinking just a basic. There we go. What's that colour? That is soft peach. That's probably a good colour for the skin. So what I would typically do is I would just go around the corners, or sorry, the corners. There's not many corners on a face. The edges first. Just lay down a little bit of colour kind of around the key points. And then go in with a lighter colour. So this is a kind of a putty mastic colour. And basically, again, go on top of the peach. And it kind of blends. Blends the two colours together. Actually, they're quite different. I think I might go back in with the peach. Well, kind of blending that well, to be honest. Maybe we'll just do it in peach, actually. That looks a little bit strange, to say the least. There you go. So I'm just going back with the peach colour. Looks like she's been on her holidays, which is fine. Okay, cool. So arms, we've got down here and here. And then there's just a little bit of skin at the bottom here. So I think you can just see on the feet, she's got leggings on, but there are just a little bit of skin at the bottom. So, right, okay, cool. So that's fine. The eyes, I typically do a blue ring in the middle. So I usually go right around the pupil in the middle with the blue. And then I would take something like a grey. That's a cool grey number 1. And just go around the edges. Not even really blending that in too much, otherwise you'll lose the blue. There we go. That is the eyes. Then the sort of flower effect really around the eye. I'm just going to do that in a kind of a minty green. I never really quite know what these are on these stamps by Anton, but they're just nice. Do we understand it? No. Do we need to? No. There we go. Then what do we need next then, really? So I guess the t-shirt. So I think the t-shirt, like a nice zesty green. So let's get a bit of colour. And I'm not doing too much in terms of kind of fade or anything on this. This is fairly flat colouring. There we go. And then on the leggings, I'm going to do similar lime green on the stripes. There we go. And then I think we'll do purple for the leggings. So I'm just colouring very carefully. Don't forget, on these pens you do have the other tip, which is the square tip. I must admit, I do tend to colour mostly with this end, which is the rounded end. And on the more recent ones I've bought, they've obviously now got a brush tip on them. But these are quite old, so these have still got the old rounded end, which is fine. I find I can work okay with that. But the new brush ones are a little bit easier because they tend to go more to a point. And I guess over time, as they run out and I replace them, all of mine will become brush type. There we go, so we're purple. Shoes, I think a green probably, just to go with the outfit. This one's a slightly different green. This is lime green. And our plate that our cake is on, just like a brown kind of neutral colour, I guess. Then cake wise, what have we got? So we've got a couple of different shades of pink. So I'm thinking like a dark pink or a bright pink, actually. It's kind of a cerise colour for the top and just over the edges. And then these bits at the bottom, the filling inside. and then a lighter pink for the actual body of the cake. Well, the body on the outside. And then the inside of the cake would be a kind of sponge, so like just a basic yellow. And then we've got strawberries on the top. So strawberries, and then just a bit of green on the tops of the strawberries. There we go. So she is completely coloured now. So see, we've got a nice little fade in the hair. The eyes are kind of grey and blue. The t-shirt's green. The cake's coloured, obviously different shades of pink. And then we've got the yellow for the actual sponge. And then obviously her leggings. What I'm just going to do is just going to go over the blue in the eyes again, just to make that a little bit more pronounced. There we go. There we go. Right, so she's done. The only thing I would do is I would add a little bit of white in the eye, just a reflection, kind of top and bottom. Just doing this freehand. And then I will put glossy accents on her, but I'll do that right at the end because obviously they take a while to dry. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to ground her a little bit. She's floating in midair, which isn't great. Just with a there we go. That's just a fine line drawing pen, just to kind of ground her so that she is somewhere. Right, now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some, I've got here my Distress ink Tattered Rose. Actually, I'll just zoom you out a little bit. There we go. I've got my Tattered Rose, which I'm going to ink up my pad, and I'm just going to go around the edges just to kind of give it a little bit of colour on the edges. Just doing this, I'm starting off the piece of paper so that by the time it gets there, it's kind of evened out a little bit. There we go. And then as I get to the bottom, I will do the corner, go in a little bit on the corner. So we want a bit of colour, but not too much. More so in the corner. Again, I'm inking up. Because I've just freshly inked, again, I'm starting way off the project so that the ink lessens by the time it gets there. Otherwise you end up with a really harsh, horrible circle, which you don't want. And don't forget, work in the way of the paper. So you're working outwards from the centre. Don't bend the paper, which ironically I am going to do on this probably at the end. More to come on that. So there we go. So we've got a little bit of a colour around her. What I'm going to do now, I'm just using a bit of kitchen towel just to make sure I don't put any dirty marks on it. I'm going to go around, I'm going to load up my sponge, and then I'm just going to go around the edges like this, just to actually give the edges a real blast of colour. Okay, so that's our Tattered Rose. That's done. Now, just giving that a blow. The other thing I'm going to do as well is I'm going to get the violet. and I'm actually going to get a scrap piece of paper and I'm just going to draw on those edges. So I'm just going to go along. Now, I would say use a piece of paper or something. You need a steady hand to do this. So I'm just going to literally draw a line, but I'm going to butt that up to the panel. The effect you get here is you just get a very thin kind of edge of that colour. And obviously because you've used that colour in the colouring, it kind of just ties stuff together. The longer you hold the pen on the edge, the more colour you get. So the slower you go, the bigger the line, or the thicker the line, or the more colour. So don't go too slow, but obviously don't go so quickly that you lose control. The pen goes across the panel and you screw it up. So there we go. There's our panel. That's pretty much done now. You can see there's a little mark here, but I'm just kind of ignoring that because I think that's absolutely fine. Don't think that's really noticeable at all. Okay, so there's our panel. Right, so let's grab our, I'm just going to move you back up a bit, I think. Okay, I'm just going to grab this back. I'm just going to bend it again just to get it kind of right. There we go. So that's our panel. So the idea is she's going to sit like that. So I've darkened this edge because obviously that's sitting on a light background. But what I want to do is do something to tie it all in together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use I've got some pink washi tape, and I'm just going to put a strip down the actual card, so that it just gives you a kind of a vertical focal point. So I'm just laying that down on my cutting mat, grabbing a length of washi tape, and I'm just going to use the markings on my mat to kind of tell me where to put that. There we go. So it's against the third line, and that's against the third line. Now, obviously, most of this is going to be covered up by the panel anyway, but it's just useful. It's a little trick that kind of just ties stuff together. It kind of brings focus, and it also makes things work better. So you can see that's offset. That then goes there, and it kind of just it's an excuse as to why this isn't slap bang in the middle. It kind of ties it into that basically. And I would also leave less space at the top than at the bottom, so the bottom has got slightly more length. So I'm now going to stick this panel down. So to do that, I'm going to just use my double-sided tape. So just go in and obviously apply that on all the sides of your panel. Now, the one thing I was going to do on this, which I haven't done yet, and I'm not actually sure, is I was going to turn over a corner and just distress it, but I'm now actually wondering whether to do that or not. Let's just have a look what it looks like. I was going to kind of fold a corner over and ink it so that it kind of looks a little bit distressed, but I think I'm actually quite liking it plain because it looks quite nice in contrast against there. The only thing is, if I did it, it would be another way to cover up this tiny little bit of black that I've got on there, which is kind of annoying me. So I think I might do it. So all I'm doing, I'm taking that bit there and I'm folding it like that. There we go. I'm going to use my bone folder on it, if I can find it, which is here. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to do that there as well. And then I'm going to take my tattered rose and just there we go. And that gives you just that extra little bit of interest. To match it, you could do a similar one at the top, which I'm just going to do in a smaller way. It's always good to put a bit of ink on it because it gives it that slightly more textured look. There we go. That makes a bit of interest. So I think we're at the stage where we can take this tape off and actually stick it down. So let's just peel these tapes away. Most people you would use glue for this. I tend to favour double-sided tape. I don't know why, but it's up to you. Sticking layers down, you can happily do it either way. So the one thing we do need to make sure is that we get this straight. One thing I'm noticing that isn't straight is definitely my camera at the moment. But anyway, there's not a lot I can do about that, I don't think, at the moment. Just, let me just adjust that. There we go, that's a little bit better. Right, so there you go, you can see the majority of it now. Apologies for the shake, but I'm adjusting it as I'm going. Okay, cool. So let me just line that up so I can see it myself, and then we'll go in and just stick that down. There we go. Now, what we can do to also tie things together is go around the edge with the same ink. So we'd have a matching, but not that, just that. So I'm taking my tattered rose and I'm just going very roughly along the edge, and that will bring everything together. So I'm not worrying too much if I go slightly on to the panel or not, but it's a useful device that just kind of brings things together. Right, I'm grabbing a 7x5 card blank from a drawer, but the first thing I'm going to do is just clean my work surface, just in case I've got ink and stuff on there, just in case I get it onto my nice pristine white card blank, which I certainly don't want to do. Right, so fold your card blank and then obviously just score that to make sure it's got a nice clean crisp fold. There we go, and then we're just going to sit that panel on there. So again with the double-sided, which I've lost, there it is. And this time round, we will be doing the bunny ears trick, which I mention in pretty much every video I make. Thank you, Natasha Foot. It's a very useful trick. If you watch my videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. If this is the first time you've heard the term, you're probably thinking, that British guy is completely loony. So here we go. You just turn up the tape on each corner, and it just gives you the chance to lay it down and wiggle it around a little bit. But because it looks like bunny ears, that's what Natasha called it. Right, there we go. So make sure your card is the right way around and the panel is the right way around, and then literally lay it down. And this is the bit where we just make sure by eye that we've got it in the right place. There we go. Peel off the tape, press it down. And you can see now at this point, you really notice that that edge has the darker bit on it that matches the other panel, which is quite a useful device. Repetition is really good. So I'm just now pressing down all of my stuck down bits as I go along. There we go. Cool. Right, so finishing touches. So what I want to do, I'm just going to grab, I've got some little gems here in a kind of a pinky palette. So I'm going to cut a couple of those off, and then I'll put them onto this card. So I'm going to take kind of, I think, a pinky and a purple. So I think we'll do one on this corner, because we've got the folds on these ones. We don't really want to distract any attention away from that. And then, was it that one? No, maybe it was that one. Oh, in fact, I've forgotten which one it was. I think it was that one, but maybe I didn't cut it completely. take that one as well. So we've got a pinky and a purple, and then we'll put this one on this corner. There we go. So just give them a press down with your tweezers. So we've got a couple of little gems there, and then the last touch, glossy accents. So on these All and Create, it's always good if you put glossy accents on the eyes. Now, as usual, I need to unclog it. That's the only thing with this product I do find, is that the top clogs up really easily. So I use the pin from my little pin flare, my little pin glue. So just check that working now. No, still not. No, I need to do that again, I'm afraid. It does clog up really easily. It's a brilliant product, but I've tried storing it upside down. I've tried all sorts. It doesn't seem to, there you go, it's working now. Stop it clogging up. So on this, you can see what you do if you're not familiar with this product is you kind of lay it down around the edge of the shape and then blob it into the middle. You kind of need to end up with no bubbles. There we go. And this will look cloudy, but dries clear. So for the minute, that's not going to look great, but I will post a picture of the finished effect at the end. So you can see it's glossy and it kind of goes clear, it goes fuzzy at first, but then it'll clear as it dries later. So I will post a picture of that. There you go, and there's our card. So our cute All and Create lady, the sentiment, cake is for life, not just for hot birthdays, which I love. We've created our center panel. We've distressed the edges, we've folded them in, we've dirtied them, stuck a couple of gems on. We've got the background we created with the Distress Oxides, picked raspberry and squeezed lemonade, which are two colours that work really well. We smushed them on a glass panel. We've had a little bit of washi tape and we've stuck the whole thing down to a 7x5 card blank. I think you'll agree, that's a really cute looking birthday card in not that much time. So there you go, that's today's card. Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give my video a thumbs up and maybe like and subscribe to my channel, and that way you'll hear about other videos when I post them. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you another time.